Today we're going to continue in our study of the life of Moses and how Moses' life speaks to our lives today. And we're going to come to the story of his calling at the burning bush. But first I thought you might enjoy seeing some images of southern Sinai, the area around St. Catherine's Monastery where Moses was called, where he experienced the call of the burning bush according to tradition. So in these images you see what the wilderness looks like. It's a barren land, it's beautiful, it's stark, it's rugged. And you know, for thousands of years, people have come here to pray. They've come here to meet God. Elijah would come to the same place to meet God. And monks throughout the history of Christianity have come, 1,700 years, they've come to this place. And I'll show you just a couple of pictures here of St. Catherine's Monastery. And this monastery, the chapel there was first built in the 300s to commemorate Moses' calling at the burning bush. The rest of it, much of the rest of it was built in the 500s. And since that time, there have been, again, thousands of monks who've come there and many visitors who've come to meet God in the silence of that place. Well, Moses came to the wilderness, and he came fleeing as a fugitive from Egypt. He was 40 years old, and there he meets his wife, Zipporah. They marry, and he spends the next 40 years going from having been a prince in Egypt to being a sheep herder in the Sinai. I mean, this is downward mobility at its worst. And when we think of wilderness experiences, we often use wilderness as a metaphor for those times in our lives, those seasons where we feel like failures, or we feel lost, or we're confused, or things don't seem to be going well at all. And what we find is the first 40 years of Moses' life, God was working in and through him as he was learning the best in law, administration, leadership, finance, all of the things that he learned in the schools in Egypt. But the next 40 years of his life he'd spent in the wilderness, and here he was learning the most important things he could learn from God. He was learning character, discipline, how to live on virtually nothing in the wilderness, faith, how to have perseverance and not to give up. All of these things were forming him into this humble leader that he would be. And there had to be moments in the wilderness where he wondered, where is God in the midst of this? And where he had to be questioning himself, again, feeling like an utter failure. But God was working in that wilderness experience. And as God was working in Moses' wilderness experience, God will be at work in your wilderness experience. So I want to encourage you to hold on and not give up in those difficult or adverse times. But finally, at the age of 80, Moses comes to a bush. He sees a bush in the wilderness. It's burning, but it's not consumed. He comes to it and he hears the voice of God saying, Moses, Moses, take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground. And then as he takes off his shoes, he hears God saying, I have heard the cries of my people Israel. I have seen their suffering. I have known their pain, and I'm sending you to go do something about it. I love this because what it says is that God knows the pain and the brokenness and the hurt in the world around us, in our own lives. And it also says this, that when God wants to do something, he sends people to do it. And in this particular case, he sends the most unlikely of people, an 80-year-old stuttering sheep herder, God is calling to be the instrument of his deliverance for the Israelite people. I want to remind you that this is how God most often works in our lives. And our task is daily to listen. God still calls us. He says, get going. I'm sending you every day to us. And our task is to listen or to watch for the burning bush. I want to encourage you to pay attention to the burning bushes, those moments in your life where God is in need of someone to help. And for you to say, now I remind you, Moses said initially, God, please send somebody else. But in the end, after he made all the excuses he could make, he relented. And in the words of Isaiah, he in essence said, here I am, send me. I'd like to encourage that to be your daily prayer. You can breathe in one breath, and in one breath out, you can say, here I am, Lord, send me. Why don't you try it right now? Here I am, Lord, send me.